to a lot of people, when they hear that, they immediately think of confrontation.
When there's like a difficult situation, I feel like quite often people think it's black or white. It's like we argue about it or it gets brushed under the carpet.
But we've had difficult conversations,
Yeah.
you know, and I care about you enormously. When you're receiving feedback that you don't want, the reality is some of it's probably true. Why shouldn't I have a difficult conversation? Why am I so special that I shouldn't get bad feedback?
Ready?
Yeah.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode number 3 of Just Chat with Jay.
I didn't even know this was a series.
Well, it's a series, alright. I've now got a 3rd YouTube channel.
Huh? Honestly, have you?
Yeah.
Really? When did that happen?
2 weeks ago.
Why didn't you tell me about it?
I did. I might not have done, but basically
Right.
I've got now a channel, my Just Work with Jay channel,
Yeah.
where once a week we upload 15 to 20 minute chats like the one we're about to have, and it's called Just Chat with Jay. The series.
Amazing. Now it all makes sense.
Yeah?
Okay.
You've been wondering why I've been asking you for
No.
this chat all week, haven't you? Today I'm joined with the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Luke Sutton.
Hey.
At this point I get you to introduce yourself how you would to a stranger.
Oh God. To total stranger.
Yeah. Just how would you introduce yourself to somebody
would
who's
say-
never met you before?
Say hi, I'm Luke. I'm a father of 2. I've got 2 stepsons. I've got a dog. I've got 2 stepdogs. I'm an aspiring street dancer. I've written. I don't know. Do I
You've
have...
written 72 books.
I've written some books. I manage some businesses. You're my partner in crime.
Yes.
And I just absolutely love life.
Perfect.
Does that work?
Yeah, that works. That's
Okay.
absolutely perfect.
Okay.
And today we're going to be having a conversation about having difficult conversations. The reason I asked you to do this with me is because generally, if I have to have a difficult conversation with somebody, the first person I will go to ask how best to approach it or what to do or what to say is you. So I thought you could impart some of your difficult conversation wisdom on the viewers as well.
Okay, so I think the first thing to think about when you say how to have difficult conversations, it's really important, and I would ask people watching this to think about how they translate that, how they interpret that.
Yeah.
Because to a lot of people, when they hear that, they immediately think of confrontation, of conflict, don't they? Of that kind of...
Yeah.
And that's immediately what makes fear. Whereas actually difficult conversations don't have to be that. You can bring something different to the table, and it doesn't have to be a conflict, it doesn't have to be a confrontation. It can still be some difficult subject matters, but if you're approaching it in a way which is saying, we've talked about this before, is like, what is my part in this? You know, this is a difficult situation that we need to talk about, but do you know what? I haven't got everything right here, but I want to talk to you about what isn't going right in our dynamic or whatever it might be. But you come to the table with that kind of attitude or angle, rather than this is about, I'm going to tell you and this is going to be a confrontation and conflict, then it changes the dynamic of it. So someone goes, it is a difficult conversation, but maybe it's not as difficult as I had interpreted in my mind about it. And I think that's really important. When people think of difficult conversations, is it because they are interpreting it as being conflict? And I would always try and spin that. So it's not about conflict, it's about discussion. It doesn't mean that it's still not easy, but that spin will immediately make it easier.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like I know for me personally, I'm sort of further down the journey with doing this, but to begin with, it does often feel like you either don't talk about something at all, or you have a blowout about something. When there's like a difficult situation, I feel like quite often people think it's black or white. It's like we argue about it or it gets brushed under the carpet and never spoken about.
There's no in between.
Yeah, there's no in between.
Whereas actually in reality, there's a massive range in between.
Yeah.
And that's that interpretation of where it is. But the other thing I'd put and I think we've had this conversation, is it's about assessing your own boundaries in life. And often difficult conversations can often be based on fear of having to talk about something which creates a boundary. So someone's behaved in a way which is unacceptable to you, you want to express it, but you fear the conversation, so you don't express it, and you don't create a boundary for that, whatever that is that's happened.
Yeah.
Now, if you do that, and it happens again, there's only one person responsible, you, because you didn't, in the opportunity, create that boundary.
Yeah.
And you can just go around in that washing machine as long as you like, creating this self-defeating, self-imploding pattern of behaviour, and you can blame everybody else. But actually, if I had just confronted it and gone, I don't, this situation needs to change for me, I don't like this dynamic, and stopped it, then it's done.
Like, you make that sound so easy.
Mm.
But how, if you are with, I don't know, somebody that you love or somebody that you're colleagues with, and you do feel a certain way and you do want to set a boundary, or something happens and you're not quite happy with it and you feel like it needs speaking about, like, how do you do that?
Mm. Yeah, and there's no getting around it. It's not easy. It's not easy. But I always say to people, nobody can ever argue with how you feel. If I say I feel happy, you can't go, no, you don't. I do. Or I feel sad. You can't. How you feel is a very personal, intimate thing that if you're having a difficult conversation, you come to the table and say, this dynamic is making me feel this way. And that is just speaking your truth and explaining it. It's not about saying you did this. It's about saying this dynamic makes me feel like this.
Yeah.
And then it's a discussion to say, and that person might go, I never realised it made you feel like that. I didn't know that. But I think getting to that place where you start that conversation is not easy, but a great starting point is to go, I feel like this.
Just a quick interlude from this video to say that Luke has written, we've already said, lots of books. 2 of them are available to purchase on my website. There'll be the top link in the description. There's Back from the Edge, which tells his incredible story, and also The Life of a Sports Agent, which is quite fitting considering that's the work that we do together. Go check them out and enjoy the rest of the video.
Do you feel like you get it right every time?
No, definitely not. But I feel like I've got a bearing. I know when difficult conversations need to be had, and I might approach them in a way which feels more, I guess someone might say softer, but actually it's my way of being in the grey area where it's either we don't talk about it or we're going to rage about it. I try and operate there, which means that sometimes these conversations can be more of a work in progress, but I would rather that than bring a sledgehammer down and crush relationships along the way. But no, not at all. None of us get it right all the time, and I think that's part of being human.
How do you feel like you know when you should have a difficult conversation with somebody about something?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think deep down we all know. I think that we con ourselves that we don't know. So I think and the thing that's telling us that a difficult conversation needs to happen is our intuition. It's that gut, voice in us going, this isn't right, this is unacceptable, this has crossed the line, or this is hurting me, or whatever it is. There's that voice in all of us that's saying that, and sometimes we don't trust that voice enough, but you gotta listen to that voice. And if that's telling you that something needs to be done or something's not quite right, then that's the time.
But then also it's sometimes so scary to put on your big girl pants and go, Luke, or anyone, or whatever, like.
Yeah, definitely, especially with someone who's quite scary.
Someone you really care about.
Absolutely. But we've had difficult conversations, and I care about you enormously, but it can be done in a way which is like not demeaning but more from coming from care and love. But it's definitely, especially if you're going to talk with someone who you think might react aggressively. But I think often when it's got to that place, it's probably because it's gone on too long.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, if you had started tackling it earlier in the more grey area, you don't get to that place where it's like bang. I think often it's kind of left, and then it's it's the Alamo, and it's on.
What advice would you give to somebody who's the receiver of the difficult conversation rather than the person who's initiating it?
Yeah. Again, another very good question without trying to flatter it too much. It's a great question. Because there's a great art in listening, and listening to someone and allowing someone to know they've been heard. So, and it's difficult, especially if you're receiving feedback or criticism that you think's unfair.
Yeah.
But it takes real personality and real humility to listen to somebody and let them, and we have all had it. I've definitely had it where I've had someone telling me something which I don't want to hear or I don't think's fair, but I have to let them say it. And I think the most important thing in that moment is two things. One is acceptance of that conversation. So if you're going to wrestle with it, it's going to wrestle with you more. Whereas if someone speaks their truth and you accept it as it is, then you're going to go and find a solution.
Yeah. Similar to how nobody can argue with how you feel, you can't argue with how anyone else feels.
That's exactly the point. So you accept it. This is how this person feels. And then when you accept it, you go, time to find a solution. I can move on to this. But most importantly, you've allowed that person to be heard. And I think when that happens, you're in the grey area of going, okay, it still might be difficult and a bit frosty, but we'll find a solution. And the second part of it, which I think is really important, I have not met one situation yet in life where there's a difficult conversation that goes on where there isn't responsibility on both sides. I haven't, if someone can, show me a workplace, particularly type of conversation where there's no responsibility on one side, I'd be amazed. There's always, so when you're receiving feedback that you don't want, the reality is some of it's probably true. Yeah. So it's not just to accept it, it's to also go, what is my part in it? What could have I done better? And I think if you're in those places of acceptance and looking at your part in it, you're halfway to finding the solution. Even if the solution is you go, thanks very much, we're all good now, we're done. You move on and you're not wrestling with it in your head that night in bed going, that wasn't right, it wasn't fair. If we all took a moment in any situation to think what is our part in it, the world would be a much smoother, easier place to get on with. I mean, the last thing I'd say on it is that, and this might sound a bit weird, but when difficult things happen to me or a difficult conversation, I actually just sometimes think this is really good for me. Yeah. This is good because I'm a lucky guy. I have a lot of good things happen in my life and I have a lot of lovely conversations. Why shouldn't I have a difficult conversation? Why am I so special that I shouldn't get bad feedback? Yeah. It's good, it grounds us. So then when the good conversations happen, they feel even better. Yeah. And I think that's the flow of life, isn't it? We have a bit of yin and yang. It all comes with the territory. It's dangerous to be in a place where you're like, well, I should never have this type of conversation.
And on the starting the conversation side, I think I've definitely developed in this in the last couple of years. It's, well, actually, why should I go to bed feeling a certain way? Or if you disagree with something or don't believe in what's happening and your values lie elsewhere with another person, it's like, well, actually, I'm not just gonna not say anything about that. I'm old enough and capable enough and I've got thick skin enough to be able to go, well, actually, I feel differently about that. Or...
Definitely. And if you're in that personal responsibility space, so every total personal responsibility is to say that everything that's in my life and not in my life is down to me.
Yeah.
Everything that's in my life and out of my life is down to me. So therefore, if there's a difficult scenario which is going to keep hurting me, that's my choice.
Yeah.
So therefore, if I'm willing to make the difficult conversation, it's because I'm going, it's my responsibility to have this conversation, because if not, it's my responsibility that's going to keep coming back at me. And that's it, where you're in that headspace, you go, I'll put my big boy pants on and front up and go treat it in the way that is going to be best to do it, I take responsibility and then we move on.
Thanks, Luke. That was sick.
What was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to say anything else? Or do you think we're done?
No, I think we're good. See you next week. We move.
No, that was perfect. I think that if anyone out there hopefully resonates with this and will take something from it, and if you want to hear us put the world to right in any other situation,
got a lot more.
we have.
If you totally disagree with me, that's cool. Just send me a message on
Have a
Instagram.
difficult conversation.
Send me a message on Instagram and we'll talk about it. It's cool. It's good for us.
Yeah. Alright guys, so thank you so much for watching. Remember to subscribe. This is the 3rd channel. It's a bit ridiculous, isn't it?
Is there going to be a 4th?
Maybe.
Wow.
Maybe it could be Luke and Jay. The 4th channel.
This is really exciting.
Subscribe, like. We'll see you next week. Keep smashing it. Remember, anything's possible. If you just work, can you do your fingers?
How many?
Just on this hand.
Yeah.
Work.
I think I've done this before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just work.